Hi folks, with Taskless today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about not so much Snow White, or I'll use that as the backdrop, but the idea of huge or big ticket expenditures and how any project, be it building or civil works or whatever it is, any project that involves a lot of money, and B, no precise terms for, like say you spend a certain amount of money on I don't know, grocery products. You can say, well, hold on a minute, that's $1 each, and how can you spend that sort of money? Because you've got a definable sort of price situation. But where any sort of creativity, building, movie making, and so on, it's a huge opportunity for slush funds and money laundering, and pretty much every big ticket expenditure is exactly that, a slush fund of one sort or another. Now, the slush fund may be to a huge or a lesser degree, but slush fund nonetheless. And I just want to talk through that. Now, the total cost in marketing and so on for Snow White, as I understand it, and this is movie production and all the marketing and distribution, is somewhere between $500 and $600 million. Some people suggest even more than that, for goodness sakes, but that's a lot of money. Now, I don't know where that money went. Did it go on big name actors? Well, it certainly didn't go on big name actors. So the budget for acting wouldn't have been much. Was the CGI of absolute AAA grade quality? Well, no, it was pretty ordinary for the most part. What about the sets and scenery? No, I can't see a vast amount of money was spent there. Maybe it was, but not that I can tell. So now there were reshoots of certain scenes, and I don't that would have cost money. There weren't a lot of actors involved, so it's not like you've got your lunchtime cart for serving sandwiches and burgers to the actors on set. That isn't going to cost you much. So where did this money go? And it's a little opaque. I mean, so it's hard to see how this money was spent or what it was spent on, and was it wisely or sensibly spent? Did it actually cost this much? Was the actual cost of the movie much less, but the slush fund money paid out to political friends and flunkies and goons, was that where most of the money went? I mean, it's hard to know. Maybe we'll never know, but it seems odd. Now, recently, Disney, as I understand it, at least, their shareholders or board of directors voted that they want to continue with the DEI policies that have cost them billions upon billions of flopped movies. And that's shareholders. Okay, shareholders go, oh yeah, I got no problem with that. I got no problem with losing billions upon billions and then billions more on top of that. No problem with it at all. Let's continue. Let's double down. And that isn't, no shareholder votes for that. Now, when you look at the major shareholders, the likes of the BlackRocks and so on, then maybe they do. But then how are they being compensated for the losses they have to sustain and the losses the company sustains? Now, when you've got a lot of shareholding in the hands of the few, like the BlackRocks, they can artificially pump up the share price or hold it or put a floor under it to stop it from collapsing. But shareholders typically don't like taking financial pain, particularly when it's easily avoidable. Stop making woke propaganda movies. I mean, easy. It's not hard, but yet they're voting for continuing woke propaganda movies that is costing them billions. I don't believe that they would vote for that unless they're being compensated and taken care of in other ways. Coming back now to the big budgets. Now, I've been involved in the business I've been in, and where I've been employed in the past. Been employed in companies where there have been huge budgets on various projects. Now, as soon as a lot of money comes in to a project, it's budgeted for a project, but where again there isn't any clear lines of costs and what it's meant to cost, and I spend this much money and this is the outcome you get. Well, that's all blurred. And in movie making and big industrial or big construction projects, there's a lot of unknown, a lot of variables, and in the middle of those unknowns and variables, which are super ginned up to allow a lot of fat and rubber there, it's very hard to say what it's going to cost and what you're going to get for your money and so on. So this is perfect. This is like, you know, manna from heaven, you know, for slush fund, money laundering, patronage, taking care of buddies, and the like. Because who's to say how much something should cost? Now, you know, I'll start off with some simple examples. Here's one where this company was contracted to build some stairs made of wood, and just a few stairs. There was only, I think, you know, 4 or 5 stairs to go up from ground level to the doorway. Had to have a railing on it and so on. Now, the cost of doing that should have been somewhere around $5,000, give or take. And even that's fairly generous, all considered. They had to put a concrete footing at one side, you know, this type of thing. They had to, because it was close to road, they had to have someone standing there with a sign saying, you know, caution and all this type of stuff. But it wasn't a lot. Now, it ended up costing about $150,000. $150,000. I mean, you're kidding me, right? $150,000. So, but this sort of sailed through and wasn't really queried. We had an assignment we were sort of subcontracted to do a lot of cost analysis. And there were numerous things like this where something that should have cost a few $1,000 was being you know, over $100,000 or sometimes more than that was being paid out. Excuse me. It turns out that this is all you know, it's a construction company that's owned by the brother of a local politician or of a union goon, or there's some sort of patronage relationship there that we've got to reward this person. But they're looting, in this case, looting from the taxpayer to reward this person. Now, this is not a rare thing. Excuse me. I had 3 cups of coffee in close succession. I think I was a coughing man. So this is not a rare thing. It's quite a common thing. Money laundering and rewarding, you know, patronage and paying out friends and relatives and mistresses and concubines and so on. And the only thing, I mean, if you have the power to do it and you've got access to the money and you can be somewhat confident you're never going to be sent to prison for it, then people will do it and do it on a grand scale. And so anyway, we this one about the steps, we thought it was so over the top. We should bring it to the attention of the guy in charge of its subcontractors, and he didn't know about it. And I don't think he'd signed off on it. But instead of looking at it as a practice, it should be curtailed, and you know, fraud squads from the police investigating it, and maybe criminal charges being like, you know, instead of looking at that, he treated it as this information would give him leverage over other people in the organization, so he could effectively extort them, so he could get some of the juicy action. And so, you know, he wanted to set up a little company that did, you know, trained people how to use computers and certain software, and he wanted to get the exclusive contract for that. So he threatened to expose them unless they, you know, did something for him, so he could participate in the corruption and the money laundering. So no one's concerned about, you know, integrity and prudential standards or this or that. They're all concerned, hey, how can I have a piece of that action? And that seems to be, and the rot has sort of really spread since pretty much all of the mass migrants that are coming to the West are from countries where you know, you can't take a shit without bribing somebody. So their view of the world is that the corruption and bribery and all that sort of thing is the natural order of things. To not do it makes you a weirdo. So So we're getting, I think we're slipping in the West, going down the slippery slope even further. So corruption at all levels is considered to be normal. If you look at, say, US aid and this sort of thing, the way they were dispersing and dispensing money, the corruption and the money laundering and the sleaze was just off the charts. But it was all, loyalist hack goons of the globalists and the Democrat Party that were winning these contracts and getting the money. These non-existent buildings that were being rented out at $100,000 a month. Supposed NGOs doing good work to help starving black kids, where the CEO was getting paid $1 million a year, and they did absolutely nothing for black kids anywhere in the world, let alone Africa. So the schemes for laundering money and slush funds and payments are vast. And movies are the same. The vast expenditure of money is who's to say how much that CGI should cost? Who's to say how much work was put into it? Who's to say how often the movie studio changed their mind about things and everything had to be redone 1,000 times? So, if the CGI thing the people were paid $50 million to do the CGI, well, it seems like a lot, but I don't know, is it? And it's hard to tell. It's hard to identify precisely, was there slush money paid? Was there under the table money paid? If there was an invoice and 50 million was paid on the invoice, well, what's wrong with that? There's two people getting together and they both agree that that's what the work should cost. So there's no real fraud there. Well, there kind of is, because the work should really have cost $2 million, not 50 million. For example, I'm not saying it did or didn't in the case of Snow White or any movie. But if it seems like a vast amount of money, it probably is. Now, if it's carefully explained to you where that money went and what it went on, and a proper forensic accountant went through, then sure, okay. But otherwise it's a slush fund and being used as that. Now, the same, for example, a major construction project. Again, my company, or a company I'm associated with, has been subcontracted to do this is a productivity analysis, and this is a $3 billion, give or take $3 billion project, and this is a product. So our mission is to compare the productivity output, the work that's been done in effect or completed, and its progress, as versus the costs. So if $1 million was paid for such and such, where did that $1 million go, and what was produced as a result of expending that money? That was effectively it. So we hadn't been at it very long, a few days, and we'd come to a particular thing where the work had been done, but it hadn't been done anywhere near to standard. In fact, the work was seriously substandard, and yet the invoicing had been gazillions of dollars, and there'd been this surprising number of advisory consultants, and it wasn't listed exactly what they gave advice, but what did they do exactly? It wasn't listed there, but they were paid huge dollars, these guys. $100,000 a week, that sort of money, to do. No one knew, it wasn't listed. So we started on that and had gone out to actually do a physical inspection of the work and just make sure we were, dotting our I's and crossing our T's. And excuse me, we went out into it more than a few hours on this one, and then the door that they'd allocated us an office in the building, and the door sort of burst open like it was being kicked open, and in came a few of the C-level executives, the CEO and the chief financial officer and a couple of other people. They came, but obviously in a state of high agitation. They were hyperventilating, and what are you doing that for? Well, it's part of our brief. That's what we've been subcontracted to do. And what do you mean? What do you mean? Oh, no. And me being me, I've always got a copy of the documents that are on me, because I'm used to these types of things going on. And so I pulled it out and pointed to the relevant clause. and they were ashen faced, red faced. It was that they were obviously, it was like they were shitting themselves, and we were told in no uncertain terms not to touch that particular area of work, and not to look at those costs, not to look at anything, and where are the invoices? And I looked around, and there was the desk where we had copies of the invoices we were going through, and the guy almost leapt, the CEO almost leapt across the room to grab these invoices, scrunching them up in his hand and don't touch these, and holding them as like a sheaf of scrumpled up papers. And I'm watching you. You're in trouble. This sort of thing. And then they were gone. that was it. And so these sort of things where you've got big money are uncovered all the time. Now, it was simply a slush fund. They were paying off people. They're mysterious marketing consultants that buy that just happen to be high-priced call girls, and it just goes on and on. Huge rewards are given to relatives and friends, and so on. So the slush fund thing. So actually, I don't know how much money is spent on because a lot of these people are really incompetent as well. They're over promoted and so on, and underqualified. So they do fuck a lot of things up, which do have to be redone, and that is expensive to redo some of those things. But also, just really, really dumb stuff. You think, how is this even possible? Like there's a large area prepared for a huge concrete pour. So they're going to pour a vast amount of concrete for a large building, and the concrete trucks turn up, but no one's organised the booms and to distribute the concrete around the area, because it's got all the metal formwork and everything. And so given the distance between the concrete depot and the building site, all that stuff's waste. They've got to go back. So instead of being a $225,000 concrete pour, it ends up being nearly a $500,000 concrete pour, just because they fucked everything up. But there you go. So there are things like that. But in terms of a big budget movie like a Snow White or anything similar, we're never going to see a detailed accounting of where the money goes. But on these things, again, wherever you see vast sums of money sort of concentrating, and where outcomes are vague and pricing structures are uncertain, then you've got a vast opportunity that is used with great gusto by the corrupt ones, and they're plentiful, to get money laundered and dispersed to friends and relatives. There's one I looked at where there's a guy who's a former staffer for a politician, and he's paid $50,000 a month to advise on hygiene for some construction project, and he's so he photocopies each month. He photocopies some hygiene booklet from somewhere, doesn't even bother buying the booklet, just photocopies and sends that in with an invoice. And there's his $50,000. He doesn't do anything, but he's just one of the ones that has to be looked after. And he's got, now there are hundreds of those people thousands on every project that are getting some form of do nothing but be well rewarded for it. And a lot of the money goes on things like that. There's another large project we're involved in where there was someone who's supposed to be in charge of like a subcontractor looking after native animal protection. Now, what they exactly did, native animal protection, but what does that involve? Who cares? And they're paid or were being paid, very handsomely for services that no one knew what it was. Turns out the brother of a senior female public servant. There's another one where a senior public servant, his wife set up a labour hire organisation, and the government employed all their their short-term labour and workers through this labour hire firm. that created this, made them into multi-gazillionaires within a few years. They had an exclusive contract to do it, and yet they had, their organisation didn't even exist. They were just handed this as a gift through the patronage system. So the list goes on, and it's widespread. And accountability for this, and the probity and prudential standards, people are caring about it less and less. There was a time when, when I was a kid, people go to prison for doing that sort of stuff. Yet now it seems to be just how things are done. And one of the key issues that allows this to be tolerated or even celebrated is once merit is gone, then who can say what the standard is and who cares anymore? It's just a matter of what you can grab and what you can get whenever you can get it. And that attitude is widespread in poor basket case countries, but it's come to the West, and we're seeing it now, I think, in the money laundering of big ticket projects, wherever they are. You've been a task today, your pushback challenge. Thank you for listening.